for FanDuel Fight Night. This Saturday, it's Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier at UFC 264. And FanDuel is giving you 30-1 odds on either fighter to win. So, it's time for you to download America's reigning, defending, undisputed #1 sportsbook app, FanDuel. Just sign up with promo code BUFFER to get in on the action.
21 plus and present in New Jersey. New users only. Must wager in designated offer market. $10 first deposit required. $150 max bonus. See full terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
A town square media station serving all of South Jersey. This is 97.3 ESPN, home of the Philadelphia 76ers.
Simmons pokes it away, steals it, sidesteps him and jams a two-hand throwdown.
WENJ HD Millville, Atlantic City. This is Sports Bash Saturday with Josh Hennig, live from the Matt Blatt Kia Studios. Now, Sports Bash Saturday. Here's Josh Hennig.
Sports Bash Saturday here on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, where you can watch the show, join the conversation. Text board is open at 609-403-0973. We got a busy show today. First of all, we have the NBA Finals tomorrow night, right here on 97.3 ESPN. Jonathan Van Tobel will join us again on the show. Hardwood Handicappers. We'll get into the series and his thoughts on the series. Suns are 2-0. Now, I thought the Suns were going to win the series, but I think they're going to be up this definitively at this point in time. So that's pretty impressive work by them. So we'll get into all that with Jonathan. Also, UFC 264 is tonight. I started giving you a little of my preview yesterday on game night. I'll give you the full preview today with Marc, Raimondi, a buddy of mine, covers MMA and boxing for ESPN, ESPN.com. He's out there in Vegas for the fights. So we'll get into everything with him. Also, Phillies, what a pathetic loss last night. We're going to get into them as well. We'll touch on the Danny Green comments. And as always, the text board is open for you at 609-403-0973. Let's go 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, 609-403-0973. And, of course, you can comment on the show as well on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. If you want to watch the show, just follow 97.3 ESPN. Sports Bash with Mike Gill, Game Night with Josh Hennig, and The Locker Room with Billy Schweim. You can catch all the shows on all the social media platforms. So I got to start with the Danny Green stuff because Billy Schweim grinded my gears a little earlier. He really kind of like stoked the flames a little bit on me. So I got to get back to it because I don't think it can be said enough about what Danny Green said. Now, for those of you who may have not actually heard the full interview or saw everything that he said, so Danny Green was on John Clark's podcast. And John Clark's done a great job at getting all these big names on his pod to talk about different things that they may not have talked about elsewhere. And John asked him a great question. The question he asked was, about the fans and how the fans impacted the Sixers, how it might have impacted Ben Simmons, which is a very fair thing to ask. And it's probably something that could have been asked by somebody else at some point in time, right? And Danny Green gave an answer that is, to this point, extremely controversial. Danny Green turns around and says that Sixer fans, maybe they're being too hard on Ben. They need to ride with them. Maybe they're too critical. He loves the fans, but, it probably affected Ben. And he goes into this super long explanation, okay? I mean, if you go and read the transcript of the interview, I mean, the explanation is like 3 paragraphs long. It's almost like he kept talking to try to make up for other things he was saying. I think somewhere along the way, Danny Green realized that maybe he shouldn't have answered the question the way he did. So I'm not as much angry at Danny Green as I am angry about the situation. I got to tell you guys, I think this is a huge problem in sports today. This is now the second athlete that his teammates in Philadelphia are just tiptoeing around. And I'm not a fan of this. I am not a fan of these athletes being so worried about their teammates' feelings. We saw this with Carson Wentz. You remember it was, oh, Carson's a good guy. Carson Wentz works hard. Carson Wentz is a family man. And every time you ask somebody about Carson Wentz, the player, they're answering with questions about Carson Wentz, the person. You're seeing a similar thing going on now with the Sixers. Okay, you ask Danny Green, you ask Doc Rivers, you ask all these people about Ben Simmons, and all the answer is Ben's working hard, Ben's doing his best, we didn't ask that question. We didn't ask about the quality of the character of the individual. We asked you about their play on the field, on the court, etc. I think Danny Green doesn't understand what it means to play in a city like Philadelphia. This is his first year here, and I think that he is very, very misguided. Listen, when you're a guy like Danny Green, where have you played? You played in San Antonio. Well, San Antonio, of course, is going to be ride or die with you because all you did is win when you were down there, and that's the only thing going on in town. What other sports team do they have to cheer for in San Antonio? They don't. You're basically halfway between Houston and Dallas, practically. So you could be either a Cowboys fan or a Texans fan. You care more about Texas football than you do about NFL football, probably, in that part of the country. What's your baseball team? Astros, maybe. Rangers, maybe. Don't tell me that you're, all over the Dallas Stars down in San Antonio. So the point is that Danny Green, he starts his career in San Antonio. Then he goes to Toronto. Well, Toronto, the Raptors are the only team in the darn country. The entire NBA, there's one team in Canada. It's the Raptors. So, of course, it's going to be ride or die. Then you go to LA. Los Angeles, where they're fair weather fans. They all love to tell you that they're Laker fans, but they don't live and die with the team. They're just like, hey, we've won rings. If we didn't win this year, we go to the beach. All right, cool, man. That's LA. LA, they're laid back. They're having a good time. They're there for the party. But that's what he's used to. Philadelphia is the first time that Danny Green has experienced firsthand, not as a visitor, but as a player, what it's like to be in a city that lives and dies, eats and breathes the entire season. And Philadelphia's not the only one either. This is not a Philadelphia problem, okay? This is a problem with Philly fans. I hate when people bring this up. People act like Philly fans are the only passionate fans out there. Here's the deal. You go to New York. You go to Boston. You go to Chicago. There are other cities that are diehard sports fans. It's not just Philadelphia. So when you think about it, this team, as constructed, all right, is a bunch of guys who come from completely different points of view, completely different perspectives. And I think Danny Green's is completely misguided. Josh Hennig here on Sports Bash Saturday, 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app. We're also live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Get on the conversation, 609-403-0973, or you can comment on the stream. Danny Green is more concerned about Ben Simmons' feelings than trying to elevate Ben Simmons, the player. This is what happens when you have trouble being objective and you let your emotions get in the way. When you let your emotions get in the way of saying what needs to be said, doing what needs to be done, this is what happens, is Danny Green's comments. If Ben Simmons can't handle the fans, he shouldn't be in Philadelphia. If Ben Simmons is having that much trouble handling fan reaction, he needs to go get help. Because Ben Simmons, if you go early to a game, he makes every shot. He takes those jump shots. He takes those fadeaways. He takes those fouls. He makes almost every single one. It's ridiculous. You watch him pregame, he makes every shot, but he can't do it in a game. It's mental. His mind is fragile. That's part of the problem here. The problem isn't the fans, Sixer fans. The problem isn't Philly fans. The problem is Ben Simmons. I told you guys for weeks now. Ben Simmons needs to get help. He needs a shrink. He needs a psychiatrist. He needs a pastor for counseling. He needs a Bible. He needs therapy. He needs something. And for Danny Green to come out and say it only makes things worse for Ben. Because now everyone's going to point to Ben and be like, see, you need your teammate to protect you from us. How soft are you? That's the attitude. It's a bad attitude to place on a guy that you're trying to so-called protect him. You're worried about his feelings, but yet you put him in a position for the fans to be even more ridiculous against him. Listen, Ben Simmons needs to get his life in order. He needs to figure this all out. As currently constructed, Ben Simmons is not and cannot and never will be reaching his potential as long as he's in Philadelphia, in my opinion. Scottie Pippen said it a couple weeks ago. Giannis is not afraid of failure. He's not afraid of being embarrassed. Ben Simmons is. And until Ben Simmons stops caring what everybody thinks about him, what everyone say about him, he will never, ever, ever reach his potential in life. Not just a basketball player, but in life. Doesn't matter what area of life you are in. If you can't handle criticism, if you can't handle someone saying mean things about you, you will never, ever be successful. You can have layers of success, but you will never reach your true potential to be a success. There's no difference between Ben Simmons and anybody else in this world who can't handle criticism. And if Ben Simmons is that sensitive, Danny Green has to tell the Sixer fans, you gotta be nicer to him. You gotta ride with us. You can't be so mean. He ain't 12. He's 24. He's a man. Maybe not 40, but he's a man. You got to grow up at some point in life. And I think Danny Green was completely misguided in what he said this week to John Clark in that interview. And if I'm Ben Simmons, I'm not doing what I'm doing this offseason so far because it's bad optics. You hear me say multiple times here on 973 ESPN, perception becomes reality. And when perception becomes reality, you're put in a bad position. You're put in a situation where you're thinking everything wrong. Everything goes sideways. And when you have a situation where you're supposed to be working on your game. The Sixers told you, we got a plan for you. You're going to work on your game. We got a schedule for you, right? And what does he do? He buys a house on the other side of the country, and he's seen out in public making out with his latest girlfriend. The perception is that Ben Simmons cares more about other things instead of getting better at basketball. And that perception, whether it's true or not, is hard to get rid of. And Danny Green did him no favors this week. All right, we'll get to your thoughts and comments in just a bit. Of course, the text board is open as always, 609-403-0973. We're also live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. But right now, joining us on the phone line, the one, the only, Pete Thompson. He is live in North Wildwood. Pete, why are you in North Wildwood today?
Oh, Josh, I'm so happy to be here for the New Jersey State Barbecue Championships. We are back, baby. Take that, pandemic. Take that, COVID. People are walking around up here in North Wildwood. There's a light breeze. You know, there's been some years, Josh, where we've been down here to do this, and we're here every year on the Saturday from 12 to 2, and there's been some years, Josh, where quite frankly, we've been melting. You know, I mean, 98 degrees and 98% humidity, and Leanne and I are down here right at the corner of First Avenue and New Jersey Avenue. We are right in front of Curran's. If you know Curran's is our location, and we're here until 2 o'clock. Come by and play our golf game, and you can win something and plus interact with me, talk a little sports, you know, and it's all about the barbecue too. Now, when we got here, Josh, the wind obviously has shifted because when we got here, all I smelled was barbecue, and I was like, oh, right? Now, right now, I'm not getting that same smell. So I think the wind must have shifted a little bit, but it's a great time. And if you've never been, you got to come down.
Again, North Wildwood, and where are you guys set up at right now?
We are at First Avenue and New Jersey Avenue, and we are right sort of, we're right across from Keenan's. You know, Keenan's Irish Pub extends to the whole end of the corner now. Right, you know, right. It's got the old Keenan's and the outdoor garden and the one on the corner, and we are right in front of Curran's is the name of the place that we're in front of. So people are here having a great time. Just look for Pirate Pete's and come down a little bit closer toward, go north. There's a little Pirate Pete's, no relation to me, by the way, but go to Pirate Pete's and keep on coming and come down here and get some barbecue, man. It is awesome. I'm just looking at the signs and I'm looking at the lines, and this is the time to come right now. I know there's a lot of people that are probably on the beach, but if you want to not wait in a line, if you want to be able to walk around and have a good time, this is the time to come. Come down and see us in North Wildwood.
All right, again, North Wildwood, the New Jersey State Barbecue Championships. Pete Thompson is down there with the crew. We'll hear from Pete in about, about 15, 18 minutes from now, Pete.
Sounds good, Josh. Talk to you again.
Josh Hennig here, Sports Bash Saturday, 97.3 ESPN. Coming up next, we'll get into the NBA Finals deeper with Jonathan Von Tobel, Hardwood Handicappers, ESPN Las Vegas radio host right here on 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app. And we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, where you can join the conversation.
Hammers one to right. That one on its way. That one is gone. Unbelievable.
I got some time to sit back and soak it all in and watch some guys hit some moonshots.
Pinch hit homer. Shohei Ohtani. He also fires the bat up. He's your home run derby champion.
The 2021 Major League Baseball Home Run Derby. Coverage begins Monday at 8 Eastern. Listen to Major League Baseball on 97.3 ESPN.
Why would someone looking for a mortgage at the Jersey Shore take a loan from a company in Detroit or North Carolina or some other far-off place? Online mortgages promise a lot, but don't always deliver. First Bank of Sea Isle City knows the Jersey Shore. We are local lenders. We use local appraisers and provide in-house processing. We understand the unique obstacles of financing in Cape May County. Don't take a chance. Local banking is better. Let us guide you. First Bank of Sea Isle City.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
PropSwappers, it's time for the British Open, and it's your last major chance this year to buy and sell your favorite golfers. You will always find big money-making opportunities on PropSwap. A few months ago, a PropSwapper named Paul purchased a $100 Phil Mickelson champion ticket and made $30,000 on PropSwap. So be like Paul. Get in on the action and head to PropSwap.com today or download their free PropSwap app. PropSwap, where America buys and sells sports bets.
This is Sports Bash Saturday with Josh Hennig, live from the Matt Blatt Kia Studios. Here's Josh Hennig.
Josh Hennig here on 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. We're joining us right now to talk more about the NBA. NBA Finals continue tomorrow night. Coverage begins at 7 p.m. right here on 97.3 ESPN. Game 3 of the NBA Finals. He is the host of the Hardwood Handicappers podcast, also host on ESPN Radio Las Vegas. He is Jonathan Von Tobel, and he is back on the show today. JVT, how you doing today?
I'm good, Josh. You know, it's been an interesting 2 games. There's a lot of cool matchup stuff to talk about in the finals as well, so I'm doing well.
You know, it's interesting because I always felt like the Suns probably should have been the favorite all along in this series. But watching the first 2 games, I just didn't expect it to go down the way it did. So was there something so far that stood out to you the most about these first 2 games?
Well, there's a lot, right? I think the first takeaway, though, is going to be the Suns from an offensive standpoint. You know, I came into this series kind of believing that this was going to be a higher scoring series. You know, I truly believe that both teams from an offensive standpoint did things well that would bother the other. And we've seen glimpses of it for Milwaukee, but for the Suns, I mean, an offensive rating through 2 games of 119.8. You're talking about shooting just about 50% from the mid-range area of the floor. The way they shot the ball in game 2 from beyond the arc, right, 20 of 39. Like they were really, really stupendous to the first 2 games from an offensive standpoint. And it's hard to, when you watch those first 2 games, come away with anything, at least if it's your first thought, then this Suns team matches up really well with the Milwaukee Bucks, no matter what they want to throw at them. So I think that's my first takeaway for sure.
When you think about the Bucks, we know they've lost game 1 of the last 3 series straight. So it seems like they've always been a little slow on the uptake. They've been much better at home than on the road. Do you expect the Bucks to be able to turn this around at home the way they have in the last 2 series?
Yeah, I do. I mean, look, so the one thing that is going to be constant throughout this series, and you saw it in the regular season, in the 2 regular season games, the Suns had no answers for Giannis Antetokounmpo, right? He scored 80 points in 2 regular season games, and now, Josh, through 4 total games, right? 2 in the regular season, 2 in the postseason, Giannis Antetokounmpo scored 142 points through 4 games against the Phoenix Suns. Like they're not going to stop him in any way whatsoever. So you can rely on that, right? And so then it goes from there. If you go to game 2, the one thing you're not going to do is win games when Chris Middleton goes 1 of 6, Holiday goes 1 of 3, Lopez goes 0 of 2, and Brent Forbes goes 1 of 3 from 3-point range. It's just not going to work out in your favor, especially when you look at some of the numbers. You know, Phoenix defensively, they've been very sound throughout this postseason, throughout the year. But if you look at some of the tracking data the NBA offers to a lot of people, and it's free on the website, but the Suns have been giving up a lot of wide open looks. They gave up 18% of wide open looks, or looks from beyond the arc. 18% of them to opponents in the postseason were considered wide open. If you go in just game 2 alone, they gave up 14 wide open looks. And for those who don't know, wide open looks are a defender 6 or more feet away. So those are extremely open shots. But despite the fact that they allowed 14 wide open looks to Milwaukee, the Bucks only hit 4 of them. And so that is a trend that is going to continue. So I do think that there's things here for Milwaukee. As long as the shooting evens itself out here in game 2, which remember, they shot 44% in game 1. They can do it. Giannis is still going to have big games, and that offense should be fine, for lack of a better term. So yes, there's plenty for Milwaukee to build on, especially from an offensive standpoint as they move forward in this series.
Jonathan Von Tobel joining us here on Sports Bash Saturday on 97.3 ESPN at me, JVT, on Twitter. He is the host of the Hardwood Handicappers podcast, as well as host on ESPN Las Vegas Radio. JVT, when I'm thinking about Giannis, you mentioned him, and I have to wonder, who is the guy who is going to be looked at the most side-eyed if they don't win this series? Is it Giannis or is it Chris Paul? Because, you know, they both have legacies they're working on. Obviously, Chris Paul is about, 10 years older than Giannis at this point. But still, Giannis is a 2-time league MVP. It's Defensive Player of the Year. And it seems like he has a super long resume for a guy his age. And if he doesn't find a way to at least get this 6-7 games, I have to wonder, people are going to start looking at him differently.
I mean, so I would say, look, they are going to, but I would say that they shouldn't, right? For both of these guys. One, let's remember the way that Giannis' knee looked about, a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. The fact that he's playing on a knee that is pretty banged up, a knee in which he told the media after game one he was scared that he was going to play next year. That's how much he thought that knee was injured after he went down in the Eastern Conference Finals. And the way that he has been doing it. Like, we have a tendency as a society, right, to just not – if it's a loss, it's a loss, and we don't care what you did. And there's a chance that Giannis is going to come into the series, average about 36 points per game, 35 points per game, and lose in like 6, and people are going to say he didn't do enough. And frankly, I think that's ridiculous. And on the other side, Chris Paul, look, I think they're going to win this series, and if they don't, I'm sure there will be people who have questions about Chris Paul, especially the route that they got here, right? No Anthony Davis for the Lakers, no Jamal Murray for the Nuggets, no Kawhi Leonard for the Clippers. But at the same time, Chris Paul was incredible in the last 2 games against the Clippers. He's been very good in the first 2 games here against the Milwaukee Bucks. I think that'll probably be part of the conversation, but I personally think that we shouldn't denigrate either one of these 2 players if they happen to lose this series against the other.
Well, we especially shouldn't. I hate this idea of putting asterisks on things. You know what I mean? Because you go back in history, if Kendrick Perkins plays that 7th game, do the Lakers really beat the Celtics the second time they play? We don't know. If Hedo Turkoglu didn't shoot horribly in the NBA Finals, do the Lakers just knock the Magic out as quickly as they did, right? You can go through every NBA season, probably find an injury or a scenario or something. So this idea that this season is belittled because of injuries, to me, is a little ridiculous. And I feel like it's actually intellectually dishonest.
I know. I would completely agree with that. Tom Haberstroh did a great job. He wrote a piece about this, actually. He found an asterisk for every single championship team in NBA history. So you can go back and you can do it all you want. I completely agree with that sentiment. And, to me, yes, I think you can tell the story of the Suns, for example, and have the injuries be a part of it, but not be the specific reason, right? Chris Paul still scored 40 points in a closeout game against the Los Angeles Clippers, right? He's had an incredible second half to put down Los Angeles in that series. He's still been very good, and he was downright incredible in game 1 and rock solid with the 23-8 in game 2. He is still performing at a very high level. So that can be part of the story, but I don't think you should sit back and go, oh, no, this is the Astros season. It's not. These are going to be 2 teams that made it to the NBA Finals. Whoever wins this is going to be an NBA Finals champion, bar none, and that's it.
Another part of the story is a guy who doesn't get a lot of hype, but he had a great game on game 2. That's Mikal Bridges, and you got to think, in our area out here, he was the guy that every Sixer fan wanted. He's from Villanova. His mom worked for the team, and then on draft night, he gets traded, and Zaire Smith isn't even in the NBA anymore. They use that first-round pick to get Tobias Harris, but you could theorize they could use another first-round pick to get Tobias Harris. So it feels like if that trade never happened, are the Suns here? Because people don't give Mikal Bridges a lot of credit for all the little things that he does for this team.
No, I think there's an argument made that they don't. And Mikal Bridges is great, man. You won't find a bigger Mikal Bridges stan than I, because he has been fantastic. And he's actually been the focus of one of these props that I've been playing through the first 3 games, and I got it already and locked in for game 3. But over 1.5 3-pointers made from Mikal Bridges. He has hit 3. He had 2 in game 1. He had 3 in game 2. He's a knockdown shooter. He's a fantastic defender as well. And you're right, like that trade it's going to be kind of one of those hardcore trades that maybe not many people remember, but Philadelphia fans and Phoenix Suns fans should remember that trade for a long time to come, because Zaire Smith barely hanging on in the G League and maybe not even having a roster spot there, to Mikal Bridges being a 3-and-D weapon that is absolutely spectacular, and who looks, by the way, like he can evolve from that, right? He had a quote after game 2 where he talked about that as his career moves on, he's only in his 3rd year as a young kid, that he wants to be more than a 3-and-D guy. And I think he's got the body and the mindset to do it too. So you're right. Like, I think there's an argument to be made that without a guy like Bridges, that maybe they're not here in the NBA Finals, because he does so many little things so well. He's a dynamic defender that can pick up another team's best player and still adequately defend them. I think there is an argument to be made that they're probably not here without Mikal Bridges, but regardless, he's been absolutely fantastic.
That's funny you mentioned about the one prop you've been riding. I've been riding the DeAndre Ayton 10 or more rebounds prop the entire postseason, which has worked out pretty well for me, to say the least. Which is funny because you think about it, you host the show Hardwood Handicappers, and you guys talk about a lot of different things on there about trends, right? And I feel like people don't always look at trends enough when it comes to sports betting. Some of this stuff is right in front of you. You don't have to go, overthinking or pay some guy a bunch of money to get a bunch of analysis, right? You could literally have someone like you, for example, say, hey, look, the trend is this happens pretty much every game. So just run with it. And I feel like sometimes people overthink when it comes to sports betting.
Yeah, there's a certain facet to that too, right? But you also have to have your own parameters. For example, if we keep with this theme of the Mikal Bridges 3-point prop, if he hits it again here, I'll probably be out because, if we look at game one, it was minus 120 on the open. Game two was minus 130. Now you're laying 150, and that was my ceiling, right? It gets to a point where the price then gets factored into it outside of the trend, and you don't want to lay as much because it's gotten out of the price range that you personally set, and that's where I'm at, right? $150 was the highest I would go with the Mikal Bridges over, and if he does it again, that's either going to go to 2.5 in terms of the 3-pointers made, or you're laying like $1.90, $2, and that'll be out of that range. But you're right, to me, it's not even so much trends; it's just matchups, right? The reason why I bet Mikal Bridges and circled him coming into the series was this was a team of the Milwaukee Bucks that in the regular season gave up the third most wide open looks to opponents from beyond the arc. It's a team that, because they played that drop coverage, opens the floors to shooters, and Mikal Bridges is going to plant himself in a corner and be a shooter in a lot of these half-court sets. And even when they're not and they're switching and everything, he's going to find a mismatch. They get out and transition the Suns. He's going to find open seating in the floor. So it was just a big matchup deal as opposed to a trend. And I think it's so important to me, at least, when it comes to handicapping sports. I like data and I like analysis in terms of analytics, but it helps to watch these games and these teams understand what they run from a philosophical standpoint and then pairing it with some of those numbers. And you can find edges like a Mikal Bridges type prop.
Jonathan Von Tobel joining us here on Sports Bash Saturday here on 97.3 ESPN. Game 3 of the NBA Finals is tomorrow night. Coverage begins at 8 p.m. right here on 97.3 ESPN FM. Now, to the Bucks side, I just got to wonder, is this team going to be able to figure it out enough to get beyond games 5 and 6? Because I'm just looking at the way they've been playing. It feels like Chris Middleton just disappears for stretches of time. Drew Holiday doesn't look like the same guy that he was when Giannis wasn't on the court, right? Bobby Portis, he's kind of hit or miss at this point. Brook Lopez looks, the fact that Brook Lopez in game 1 got isolated so many times on Devin Booker and Chris Paul. Because the part of the things, does anybody else not see what's going on? Does somebody not realize that this is happening every single time? The part of the wonders, are the Bucks just too slow to adjust? And that might be the end of them.
I don't know if it's too slow to adjust. I just don't know if they're built to do it, right? So, you talk about game 1, and Mike Budenholzer came out in game 1, and he said, we're going to switch everything. And that meant switching, those pick and rolls with Devin Booker and Chris Paul and Devin Booker ate Brook Lopez alive in a lot of those possessions, specifically Chris Paul, right? He had a really big game 1. So, and DeAndre Ayton, right? And this is what makes the Suns so good, too, by the way, is so in game 1, they were switching everything. Okay, DeAndre Ayton have a really big first half and have a really big game. Get 22 and 19. If you get switched on to Drew Holiday, we're going to lob it up to you. You're going to finish. If we get Brook Lopez on Chris Paul, we're going to exploit that, too. So then you get to game 2, and Budenholzer does adjust, and he plays a majority of this classic drop coverage stuff, right? Problem is, Chris Paul, in a lot of those mid-range possessions, he exploited that soft drop coverage area of the floor, right? That mid-range area that Trae Young beat him up in so many times early in that Eastern Conference Final Series. And what does the drop coverage do? It gives up wide-open three-pointer shooters, and you hit 23-point shots in game 2. And I just don't know if you're built to stop what Phoenix is throwing out there, right? That's why there's so much emphasis on your offense getting better, because your defense isn't going to stop anything. There's a lot of, hey, Mike needs to go to the small ball Giannis at 5 lineup. And I talked about this on the latest episode of the podcast, Hardwood Handicappers. There's a certain part of people that are right. He probably should go to that small ball center lineup if he had Dante DiVincenzo, but he doesn't have Dante DiVincenzo. If you look throughout the numbers and the lineups that the Bucks have thrown out there, when Giannis plays center, their most optimal small ball lineups have Chris Middleton at the 4 and Dante DiVincenzo at the 2. And he is not available at this point right now. The lineup that they did throw out there with Pat Connaughton in the lineup and Bobby Portis as well, and PJ Tucker, not Bobby Portis, that's a negative 20 compared to a plus 51.5 with Dante DiVincenzo out there. So I just think, Josh, it's just so hard when you look at this from a matchup standpoint. The Bucks just aren't built to stop the Suns defensively. So it's about improving your offense as opposed to trying to stop their offense.
Looking after this series, let's say the Suns win, okay? How many of the guys can keep on this team? Because Cameron Payne's going to get a big bank at free agency. I don't think he's coming back, right? Are they going to be able to keep this team together to make another run next year? Because we know the core is there, right? Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, Mikal Bridges. But do you think the Suns can keep the rest of the team together to maybe, if they win this year, to do it again, try it in the next year?
So I don't know if they're going to make it this far next year, but yes, like they are set up to come back with essentially the same crew, right? You mentioned Devin Booker. You would assume that they re-signed Chris Paul. DeAndre Ayton's under contract. You mentioned Mikal Bridges. Remember Cam Johnson, a young guy that they drafted. He'll be back as well. So now it's about filling out the rest of the ancillary pieces, right? Memory escapes me. I don't know if Jay Crowder was a multi-year deal for he's just a one-year signing. You probably bring him back or some form or fashion, and you can find a backup guard, right? Like Cam Payne is a really good story, and he started the 2 games of the Western Conference Finals. He was really solid. He also has his flaws too, so he'll get his money with another team, but you could find a backup scoring guard, right, at any point in the offseason. So I would say yes, like the core of this Phoenix team, we're talking like 80%-ish of it, they're going to be back, and they'll be primed to repeat if they win the title or make another run at the Western Conference title if that's the case and they lose.
By the way, Crowder's under contract for 2 more years. He's signed through 2023. Okay. It's about the same exact money. He's only making about $500,000 more next year than this year. So it's not like it's like a big cap hit or something. So you know,
so then you just fill out the pieces from there, right? So yeah, they're in a pretty good spot to run this back, and you still have one of the more important pieces, which is Monty Williams, one of my favorite coaches, and a guy who should have won Coach of the Year. So this team is going to be just as good as they were this year next season.
Isn't that wild though? That hindsight like that is so intensely 2020. Like, you know, leading up to that award, everyone was like, "Oh, well, you know, Thibodeau, he did this." Then the playoffs are done and over. You're like, Monty Williams completely outcoached Thibodeau in the postseason. Like, it really shows people like these awards are really regular season awards.
Well, I mean, they're regular season awards, but you know, I said this when the award was coming up, which is if Tibbs had coached Orlando and the season had gone exactly the same way, he's not winning Coach of the Year. It's the fact that he coached the New York Knicks that swayed so many of the media members to vote for him, which is a little ridiculous. And look, Monty Williams got more first place votes, right? Like that was the thing, and yet he still didn't win it. So you know, I would agree that you know we always have this hindsight is 2020. We do this with the MVP all the time, right? You know, Giannis wins it twice and then gets eliminated in the second round and then in the first after a 2-0 series lead over the Raptors those years ago. And we're like, that's not an MVP. Now, you know, I was in the regular season, I thought it was pretty clear that Monty Williams did a tremendous job and that Tibbs only won the award because it said New York on the jersey as opposed to Charlotte. Because if he's the head coach of the Hornets, I don't know if you're voting for Tibbs, the 4 seed in the Eastern Conference, to get this award.
As we give coaches, this has been the most bizarre offseason in terms of coaching vacancies and hires I've ever seen. I feel like I don't know if it's a byproduct of us coming out of the pandemic as we are. I don't know if it's a byproduct, but just it's a different world right now. But it feels like, you know, the fact that they put Chauncey Billups through the shredder, Jason Kidd not through the shredder. Mm-hmm. I'm not even fully sure who exactly is the lead candidate for Orlando's job anymore. I feel like that's depends on which insider you ask. The fact that Udoka basically got the job in Boston because he coached Tatum and Brown on the Olympic team, right? Like, and Carlisle's back in Indiana. Like, this entire offseason for coaching additions is just so bizarre.
Yeah, it seems like that, right? And like in the way that some of them left, like Carlisle leaving Dallas, right, with clearly some tension there between him, the front office, Luka Doncic, all of that sort of stuff. It has been a very unique and interesting season. The way that the Celtics, right, head coaching vacancy opened up to begin with, it has been pretty fascinating up to this point. But I always find the coaching carousel in the NBA pretty fascinating because as a whole, it doesn't make a lot of noise, right? In the NFL, we get to see, okay, guy X had the headset on, he's calling defensive plays. In the NBA, it's a little bit more vague unless you really follow the teams, what the responsibilities of these guys are and the effect that they had on a team. So I think there's always that lukewarm nature of some of these coaches, unless we know who they are, of, well, what does that even mean for the most part? But I'll go back to a guy like one of my favorite coaches is James Borrego, ironically, the head coach of the Charlotte Hornets. But, you know, he has done a tremendous job developing and building that team up from ground up and developing young players. And didn't really move many needles, right, when he was hired for Charlotte. So, you know, you always want to sit back and watch these coaching hires and give them a chance because it might seem a little odd. It might seem like a name you don't really recognize. But these are really smart guys. And at the end of the day, you're going to see whether or not a guy is worth his weight in salt because he's going to be out there and improving a team and developing a team for sure.
All right, JVT, one more for you before we let you go. Ben Simmons, will he be a Sixer next season?
So I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say yes only because I don't know what you're getting for him, right? So I think one of the deals that was out there was like DeMar DeRozan in a sign and trade. Like that's making a championship team, right? Like that's improving things. I think when you look at the landscape, there's plenty of other options out there, right? So if you're Philadelphia, you could probably call up at Oklahoma City and get some draft picks, but those draft picks aren't making you a title contender. Those draft picks aren't winning you that series against the Atlanta Hawks. So I think it's a mix of what is out there in terms of deals that will improve your team, and on top of that, like where the other deals are at, because draft pick, like a load of draft picks isn't doing it for you. Joel Embiid is in a win now window. That team is in a win now window, right? And so what you're getting back, it's all dependent on there. And I know like CJ McCollum, right, was one of the deals initially put out there. I don't know about you, but CJ McCollum's a really good player. I didn't see a team that needed a two guard, right? I saw a team that desperately needed some presence at point guard that could finish, that could run pick and rolls to Joel Embiid, that had an off the bounce game, all those sort of things. I just don't know if CJ McCollum checks the box of improving your team to the point where they're winning that series against the Hawks and winning the Eastern Conference. So I think it's just a tough spot where there's just not much out there for Ben Simmons. And things develop, and maybe players that are not available at this moment are available in a trade coming up in a month or so. But just kind of looking at the entire environment, I don't know if I'm Philadelphia that there's anything attractive enough out there for me to ship off Ben Simmons.
My favorite rumor, though, is the whole Timberwolves are desperate for Ben Simmons, but they will trade anyone who's not D'Angelo Russell or Karl Anthony Towns.
Right.
Like, wait a minute. There's literally only one other guy left for you to trade. Like, it's just these weird, or like the rumor about the Kings. They'll trade De'Aaron Fox and Buddy Hield. And I'm just like, so where are the Kings then? Ben Simmons and nobody else? Like, it's
right.
Just, like these scenarios are out there right now. They just seem so irrational. But there's a part of me that says Daryl Morey always makes a move. So there's a part of me that says if anybody's going to make a deal, it's Morey. If there's another guy in charge, I don't know if I'd be as confident a trade could happen.
Yeah, but I would say, too, like, look at the deals that Morey has made, right? Some pretty big splashes with guys that really tip the scales, whether it's a Russell Westbrook or Chris Paul, the most recent big ones right over there in Houston. Like, those are guys that I was at spot A before the trade happened. Now I am past that spot, and I am better as a team. And I just don't know how many moves are out there for Morey unless he can convince, a Portland, right? Portland is one of those where, how about Damian Lillard instead of CJ McCollum, right? If that's a deal, then hell yeah. Like, I'm making that deal if I'm acquiring Damian Lillard in some form or fashion, because him on that team, I think, would be absolutely dynamic, right? So if it's that kind of a deal, I think he's out of there. But again, if it's like CJ McCollum, if it's like a package of Anthony Simons and all the other pieces out there, right, and Norm Powell, like I don't know if that's what makes you better as a team in Philadelphia, and if that checks the boxes of what you were lacking in that Eastern Conference semifinal series.
He's Jonathan Von Tobel. Follow him on Twitter at MeJVT. Check out the Hardwood Handicappers podcast. He's also a host over at ESPN Las Vegas Radio. And as all guests, he had joined us on the video stream. Good to see you, JVT. Great basketball talk today. We'll catch up soon.
Thanks for having me, Josh. Appreciate it.
Josh Hennig here on Sports Bash Saturday on 97.3 ESPN. Before we get to the thoughts and comments, Glenn, EHT, also Dan, EHT, will get to you guys in just a bit. Right now, we're checking one more time with Pete Thompson this hour down in North Wildwood for the New Jersey BBQ Festival. Pete, how's it going down there?
Oh, Josh, it's even better than the last time I talked to you. There's a nice breeze. Some of Wildwood's finest are rolling by on bikes. People are just having a good old time. Loose Leaf just wrapped up their set, and Blue Style will be taking the stage from 1:30 to 4. Hey, our location, I had a slight misspeak in my last time that I talked to you. We are at the corner of First Avenue and Old New Jersey Avenue. Old New Jersey Avenue, of course, is the street that sort of they close off to make this whole barbecue fest possible. And, another thing that I picked up, this is the New Jersey State Barbecue Championships. If you want to find out more information, go to njbbq.com, and they've got a very comprehensive website in there, including things like the pro tips, like take the jitney. Don't have to worry about where you're going to park and what you're going to do. There's jitneys running on a loop from 3rd Avenue south along New Jersey Avenue. So just take the jitney to get down here and leave the driving to them, so to speak. But, it's been great so far. This is Chamber of Commerce weather, if you will, and obviously we were all affected by the pandemic. But to be able to be back full bore here, to see a street full of people not with a mask on, but with barbecue going in their face is outstanding to me. And I'm looking forward to sampling a little bit of the product at some point as well.
Well, Pete, we'll talk with you more about that product a little bit in the next hour. We'll talk with Pete 2 more times coming up in the next hour. Again, North Wildwood, the New Jersey State Barbecue Championships. Go visit Pete and the gang down there. Though we said First and Old New Jersey Avenue, right?
That is correct. First and Old New Jersey Avenue. We're basically outside of Curran's, where the corner is, where Curran's is on one side and Keenan's, the extension of Keenan's, not the Irish pub part, but the secondary part of Keenan's is on the corner across from us too. Plus, I mean, the biggest barbecue and the biggest line I've seen down here is for Butch's, established in 1974. Smack your lips, it says. Smack your lips good barbecue. And with fun things there like best butt. Okay, I'll take some best butt. Yeah, I said that on the radio. That's barbecue, not well, anyhow.
All right, Pete. Well, you go sample some of that food. You'll let us know in the next hour, okay?
Sounds good, Josh. Look forward to talking to you again, buddy.
All right, Pete Thompson will check in again in about 20 minutes from now. We'll hear from him again down at the New Jersey State Barbecue Championships in North Wildwood. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Sports Bash Saturday on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. We got comments. Dan and EHT, Glenn and EHT, and more of you to get to. Text board is open, 609-403-0973. And we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, where you can watch the show and comment on the stream. Just follow 97.3 ESPN, jump in that stream, and you can leave comments on there as well. Don't forget, Marc Raimondi, ESPN MMA reporter, joins us coming up at 1:40 tonight to preview UFC 264, McGregor versus Poirier 3. That's tonight.
The NBA playoffs continue. Devin Booker, Chris Paul, and the Suns survived 42 from Giannis and take a commanding 2-0 lead over the Bucks. Now we head to Milwaukee, where the Bucks face a critical Game 3.
It's kind of hard to enjoy the game when you're losing, but we're going to figure it out.
Game 3 of the Bucks and Suns. Coverage begins tomorrow at 7 Eastern on ESPN Radio. The NBA Finals, exclusively on 97.3 ESPN FM, South Jersey's sports leader.
New Jersey, this is not a test. If you're looking for a deal on a new vehicle, get to Matt Blatt Nissan and get $2,500 off on every new 2021 Nissan Murano SUV in stock.
Oh, yeah, it's on at Matt Blatt Nissan.
Yes, get $2,500 off every new 2021 Nissan Murano in stock. Drive it today with 0 down and pay 0 interest for 60 months. Plus, Matt Blatt Nissan will buy your current vehicle for cash or trade it for top dollar. What do you get? $2,500 off. 0 money down, 0% interest on every 2021 Nissan Murano in stock. And don't forget our fast track checkout. So bring any vehicle and Matt Blatt Nissan will buy it for cash or pay top dollar for any trade in Egg Harbor Township next to Home Depot or online at mattblattnissan.com. Negative equity will be refinanced into new vehicle. Rate qualifications exist. Not all will qualify. 0% APR financing based on 1667 per thousand borrowed. Offers can't be combined. Call 877-289-6670 or go to mattblattnissan.com for complete details. Offer ends 8/6/21. It's on at Matt Blatt Nissan on the Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township.
Always wanted a Jersey Shore mansion? With a $127 million Powerball jackpot win, you could buy the shore home of your dreams, plus one for everyone in your family. It's just that many millions. Anything can happen in Jersey.
This is Sports Bash Saturday with Josh Hennig, live from the Matt Blatt Kia Studios. Here's Josh Hennig.
Josh Hennig here, live in the Matt Blatt Kia Studios here on 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Yes, Matt Blatt Kia, we'll get you approved today. Matt Blatt Kia, Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township. Visit them online, mattblattkia.com. Don't forget, we'll get you my FanDuel sports picks for the weekend. Got you some picks. Gave one of them yesterday on game night for the UFC fight day. So we'll get to all those picks a little bit later in the show. Remember, in the past, we've used JVT's picks as part of our Seeing Game parlay. So we'll do the same thing again tonight for our picks. So, again, Game 3 is tomorrow. Hear all the action right here on 97.3 ESPN FM. Also, we'll talk more UFC 264 with Marc, Raimondi, ESPN MMA reporter, coming up at 1:40 p.m. today. And, of course, text board is open, 609-403-0973. As promised, I would get to some of you guys' comments from the text board. Also, let PT know that Brad is on his way to go see the PT. Brad on YouTube says, I'm in North Wildwood. I'm on my way to see the PT at the New Jersey Barbecue Championships. There you go, Pete. If you're out there listening still, Brad says he's on the way. A couple texts that came in, 609-403-0973. Glenn in EHC chimes in and says, fans hope, wish, and pray for Simmons to be great when all he has given us is good. You say he needs help, and I thought that too, but I think Ben Simmons is who he is. He doesn't have it. Couple things there, Glenn. First of all, you don't need to have it to be a really great player. You know, I wrote the list of the greatest players to never win an NBA championship over at 97.3 ESPN.com, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. And I don't think anybody's going to sit there and act like all of those players had it. And part of them not having it was the reason why they never won a championship. You know, I don't think anyone's ever going to confuse Dominique Wilkins with anybody who won a championship. Dominique Wilkins was a great player. He was phenomenally talented, but he was limited. He couldn't shoot very well from the perimeter. He wasn't the greatest foul shooter, right? Dominique was a freak highlight reel dunker who was a phenomenal, about 15, 18 feet in scorer, who was an underrated defensive player. I don't think Ben has to have it to be great, but I do think Ben can never reach his potential in Philadelphia. I think Ben Simmons being in Philadelphia is part of his problem. I think as long as he is in Philadelphia, he will never be more than what he is. And I think that's part of Ben's problem. I think Ben Simmons will never be more than what he is because I think in Philadelphia, it's holding him back. That's just my personal opinion. Dan from EHT chimes in at 609-403-0973. Ben is historically a bad shooter. Philly fans need to boo and criticize much more. Wentz never got booed like he should have. The Phillies bullpen should be booed too. Listen, Danny HT, I found a very interesting contrast. Danny Green says the fans are too critical. You're saying they're not critical enough. I think it goes back to a comment I heard last night, which is, you know, Jason Fitz on ESPN radio, you hear him weekly with Mike Gill on the Sports Bash. He said on his national show right here on 97.3 ESPN that he thinks certain players, because we like them, because we have a certain good feeling about them, they're not criticized enough. I think it's 100% true. I think that there were people in Philadelphia who liked Wentz, who thought well of him. They wanted to, you know, cheer him on, so they weren't as critical of him as they should have been. So maybe there's something to that. Maybe there's something to the fact that, you know, if you don't like a certain player, if you like a certain player, or vice versa, it affects how you treat them and how you criticize them. I think that Ben Simmons, for his entire time here in Philadelphia, like Howie Roseman, has had a negative perspective from the fans. We'll get more into this on the other side. I think it's a very interesting side point that Dan EHC brought in. Keep your text coming, 609-403-0973. I'm Josh Hennig. Catch you on the other side.
Today on Major League Baseball on ESPN Radio. One of baseball's fiercest rivalries begins another chapter this weekend when the Chicago Cubs welcome the St. Louis Cardinals.
Swing and a miss. He struck him out. Kimbrel closes it out.
The Cubs and Cardinals. Coverage begins today at 6:30 Eastern on ESPN Radio.
Listen to Major League Baseball on 97.3 ESPN, South Jersey's home of the MLB playoffs and the World Series.
The championship offer you don't want to miss. Because during the finals, new users get 30-1 odds on either team to win their next game. That's right. New users get 30-1 odds on any team to win their next game. That means you can win $150 on a $5 bet. There are so many ways to win with FanDuel Sportsbook during the NBA Finals on their simple-to-use app with unique, fun bet types and exclusive, always-on promotions. New users sign up with promo code Hennig to bet on the NBA Finals with 30-1 odds. Once again, that's promo code Hennig to unlock 31 odds on either team to win their next game exclusively on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Must be 21 or to play and present in New Jersey. New users only. Must wagering designated offer market. $10 first deposit required. $150 max bonus. See full terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problems? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
South Jersey's home of the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
Well, something to think about, for sure.
WENJ HD Millville, Atlantic City. A Town Square media station serving all of South Jersey. This is 97.3 ESPN. This is Sports Bash Saturday with Josh Hennig, live from the Matt Blatt Kia Studios. Now, Sports Bash Saturday. Here's Josh Hennig.
Josh Hennig here, second hour of the show on 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, wherever you can watch the show. We're live in the Matt Blatt Kia Studios here on 97.3 ESPN FM. Still to come, we'll be previewing UFC 264, McGregor versus Poirier 3. Yes, Conor McGregor is going for his first trilogy fight, and this time it'll be against Dustin Poirier. He'll try to get revenge. We'll ask Marc, Raimondi, ESPN, MMA reporter about it. He's live in Las Vegas. We'll get in all the info from him coming up at 1:40 p.m. Plus, we'll be checking in with Pete Thompson down at the New Jersey Barbecue Championships down there in North Wildwood, how things are going on with him. Also, this hour, my FanDuel Sportsbook picks for the weekend. We're going to take JVT's pick again just a couple weeks ago. We incorporated his pick into the parlay. It worked out last time. Let's see if it works out again with the FanDuel Sportsbook picks for the weekend. Also, I wanted to react a little more to what Glenn and EHC and Dan and EHC had to say on the text board. You can chime in as well at 609-403-0973. Get on the conversation, 609-403-0973. If you're listening on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, it's free thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. Also, we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Just follow 97.3 ESPN. So, before we get to all that, there's a little news that came down. Major League Baseball has announced the replacements for the All-Stars. Remember, there's a bunch of guys who are missing due to opt-outs, injuries, etc. We know that Jacob deGrom is not going to pitch because he wants to take some time off. We know that Kyle Schwarber has a pretty interesting injury to his groin and his hamstring, so he will not play. There's a couple others as well who are not going to be able to play in the All-Star game. But here's the list of names who were named, and the reason why I want to bring this up is because again, there was a Philly who was overlooked for the All-Star game. So they named for the National League, the replacements are Yadier Molina, Justin Turner, as well as Walker Buehler, Max Scherzer, Randy Peralta, and Tawan Walker. So the National League is brought in a bunch of guys. Now, I've been wanting Gene Segura to make this team. Okay, I feel that Gene Segura, I know he missed a bunch of time, but I think Gene Segura has had a really great year. And I was a little bit curious when they decided that they were going to put JT Realmuto in. I always thought that Yadier Molina should get in or Contreras as the catcher. Well, they put Yadier Molina in, so he's coming in now with Mookie Betts and Schwarber not playing. But what I am surprised is still no Segura. Then they fixed the one omission by putting Scherzer in there, so I'm glad about that. But they basically just put a bunch of Dodgers on the team, okay? Justin Turner, he's having a great year. They put him on the roster, right? They put Yadier Molina. He should have been there in the first place. But still no Gene Segura. I'm not liking that. I think Segura's had a phenomenal year. Again, I know he's missed time because of injury. But I think it's very cheap to hold that against him. A lot of guys have missed time due to injury this year, okay? So, of your starting pitchers, here are your options, at least in my opinion, to start the game. Obviously, Zach Wheeler has to be in that conversation, okay? I think that Max Scherzer should be in that conversation as well. If you want to throw in another name out there who could start the game, Corbin Burns is maybe another guy you could put out there. Personally, to me, it comes down to Wheeler or Scherzer. I think one of those two guys has to start the All-Star game. I think if anybody starts who's not Scherzer or Wheeler, it's completely disingenuous and it's childish. Because there's no way that anyone could overlook the fact that aside from Wheeler's record, all of his other numbers this year have been absolutely incredible. Same thing with Scherzer. Scherzer hasn't always got the best run support either, but he's had an incredible year as well. But if you try telling me that anybody else who's made the team, he should be the starter, I will laugh in your face and tell you that you don't know baseball. And that includes Major League Baseball. You know, baseball does these strange things all the time where they think they know better than everybody else. And it's like, dude, you're not that smart. You're not the smartest person in the room all the time. Sorry. Not buying it. Look over on the American League. Okay, they put Chris Bassett into the game to replace Shane Bieber. Okay, Chris Bassett's having a nice year. He's having an all-star year. It kind of feels like, wow, you really were trying to push to get another Oakland A in there. Why? Who cares, right? By the way, you're in Colorado, and you only have 2 Rockies, but you're shoving more Dodgers down our throat. Like, what's going on here, baseball? Also, look on the American League side. Listen, Tim Anderson should have been on the team in the first place. But Joey Wendell? Wendell's having a really good year, but is it really an all-star year? He's on my fantasy team. I know he's playing well. Trust me. But I didn't really thought he was an all-star. Also, how about the fact that in the National League, they replaced all the outfielders with non-outfielders. So you have outfielders like Schwarber and Mookie Betts are getting replaced, and they replace it with non-outfielders. It's going to be an interesting strategy they're going to use in the All-Star game. You can hear the All-Star game right here on 97.3 ESPN. Coverage begins on Tuesday night at 7 o'clock. Also, the Home Run Derby Monday night. So, we're going to see what happens. You know, Dave Weinberg picked Shohei Ohtani, and I picked Soto. So, Ohtani and Soto are playing the first round. So, either one of us could look really right and look really wrong. So, for the Home Run Derby. All right, let's get into some of the comments from the text board. More texts are coming in. 609-403-0973. You know, you look at what we talked about in the last hour, a lot about Ben Simmons, a lot about Danny Green's comments. And I think that when we look at what's going on, I think that Dan EHT brought up an interesting point. I wanted to pull it up again. We'll get back to what Glenn said in just a bit. We have another text to get to as well at 609-403-0973. But Dan EHT talks about it, says, you know, they need to boo more. That Wentz didn't get booed enough like he should have been. That Philly fans need to boo and criticize more. I think that's a very interesting contrast because what you're basically saying is that the Philly fans are sometimes too nice. And that's not the perception by non-Philadelphia sports fans. Non-Philadelphia sports fans think and assume that they're critical enough. And I think that what we realize is that the problem isn't being critical. The problem isn't booing specifically. The problem is who you are being critical of. DNHC nailed it. There were people who just refused to be critical of Carson Wentz because they loved Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz was their favorite, right? And it's like one of those deals where when you look at Philadelphia sports, we all have our favorites and we all have biases. And when you bring bias, when you bring subjectivity, when you bring emotion into it, you have trouble being objective. And I think that when it comes to the Philadelphia sports fan, Danny Green can say all he wants about the Philadelphia fan. But at the end of the day, the Philadelphia fan, like any fan base, is only going to be upset and critical when you actually, I don't know, do something worth being critical of. I mean, we act like Ben Simmons isn't a 3-time All-Star, a 2-time all defensive team. He is. But We are allowed to criticize him when he doesn't make free throws, something that should be a basic fundamental of basketball. But what do I know? We're all just people watching the game who have happened to know enough about the game to not be completely idiots. If Ben Simmons needs that much protection from his teammates for the Sixers organization, then he's not built to play in the NBA. He's not built for criticism. Maybe he needs to find a new job. That's how I look at it. Josh Hennig here, Sports Bash Saturday, 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app, but we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. We got another text to get to in just a bit, but right now we're going to run down to North Wildwood again. Pete Thompson joins us again live on the phone line as he is at the New Jersey State Barbecue Championships down in North Wildwood. Pete, how's it going down there?
Well, Josh, I can safely confirm that we have been delivered some barbecue. We can't thank the folks at Butcher's Barbecue enough. As Allie, the manager, Lexi was the runner, but Allie, the manager, said, oh, yeah, absolutely. We'd like to have them talk about our barbecue on the radio. And not only is it barbecue, but, Josh, this is New Jersey barbecue. Butch Lupinetti is the guy that founded Butcher's Barbecue way back in 1974. Now his daughter Allie is running the show, but they're down here and they are a large presence down here at the barbecue festival, along with Jack's Down Home Barbecue. They're sort of the Coke and Pepsi, if you will, of the two big barbecue Johns that are here, right? Leanne went and got us some fresh lemonade because, of course, we're on the clock, so we are not imbibing in the adult beverages, but if should you choose to do that, there are plenty of adult beverages down here, and I got to tell you, Josh, there's a light breeze blowing. People are walking around with smiles on their faces and just having a grand old time here at the New Jersey State Barbecue. You got to come down here at some point. Now, Josh, to the best of my knowledge, you have not been down here. Is that correct?
Well, no, because I'm always working here when you guys are down there.
Yeah, we gotta find a way to make that. It's a 3-day open air festival, and it's sanctioned by the Kansas City Barbecue Society. And Eric Shankus, and I got to give a thanks and a shout out to Eric Shankus. He takes care of us every year and makes sure that we have power and we're set up, and we're right on this prominent corner. We're at First Avenue and Old New Jersey Avenue. Here's Charlie's Angels right here walking by. Kelly, Sabrina, and Jill. Charlie's Angels are walking by right here. And obviously that's Bosley in the back there. And one of the guys is Charlie, right? That matches up perfectly. So we're having a great time at the New Jersey State Barbecue Festival as I am half carnival barker, half radio host as I rope people into my game. Josh, we're having a good time.
I just want to know, is that Charlie's Angels from the 70s or Charlie's Angels, the 2000 movie we're referencing here?
I'm going to go with Charlie's Angels from the 70s. I'm going to say that these people know who, Farrah Fawcett and, they know who Jacqueline Smith is. And they, one of the guys even probably knows that when Farrah left, Cheryl Ladd took over. So I'm going to say that they're more the 70s show than the movie with Cameron Diaz and Lucy Liu and all that stuff. Didn't Bill Murray play Bosley in the new one?
The very new one, yeah, like the most recent version of, which confuses me how they're all related. But you're right, yeah. There's definitely been a few different iterations of the film, to say the least.
And the other great thing, Josh, that's about my 10th or 12th dog that I've seen walk by. A lot of people have their dogs and they're just walking around, having a good time, sampling the barbecue, sampling some of the adult beverages. This is probably as nice a New Jersey State barbecue weather as I think we've ever had. So please come on down and join us. Leanne and I are here with the 97.3 ESPN prize tent and, play our putt-putt game.
All right, there it is. Pete Thompson down there. Go visit him. North Wildwood, the New Jersey Barbecue Champion. We'll hear from Pete Thompson one more time a little bit later this hour. Pete, go eat some food.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. Talk to you in a little bit.
Josh Hennig here, Sports Bash Saturday, 97.3 ESPN. We'll head back to the text board next, 609-403-0973. Also, we'll be giving you my FanDuel Sportsbook picks for the weekend right here on Sports Bash Saturday with yours truly, Josh Hennig, at Josh Hennig on Twitter, 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Don't forget, we'll be previewing UFC 264 about 24 minutes from now. Marc Raimondi, ESPN MMA reporter, will join us live from Las Vegas, where McGregor versus Poirier, the third fight, goes down tonight. So we got a lot to get to coming up on the other side right here on 97.3 ESPN FM.
The NBA playoffs continue. Devin Booker, Chris Paul, and the Suns survived 42 from Giannis and take a commanding 2-0 lead over the Bucks. Now we head to Milwaukee where the Bucks face a critical Game 3.
It's kind of hard to enjoy the game when you're losing, but we're going to figure it out.
Game 3 of the Bucks and Suns. Coverage begins tomorrow at 7 Eastern on ESPN Radio. The NBA Finals, exclusively on 97.3 ESPN FM, South Jersey's sports leader.
New Jersey, this is not a test. If you're looking for a deal on a new vehicle, get to Matt Blatt Nissan and get $2,500 off on every new 2021 Nissan Murano SUV in stock.
It's on at Matt Blatt Nissan.
Yes, get $2,500 off every new 2021 Nissan Murano in stock. Drive it today with 0 down and pay 0 interest for 60 months. Plus, Matt Blatt Nissan will buy your current vehicle for cash or trade it for top dollar. What do you get? $2,500 off. 0 money down, 0% interest on every 2021 Nissan Murano in stock. And don't forget our fast track checkout. So bring any vehicle and Matt Blatt Nissan will buy it for cash or pay top dollar for any trade in Egg Harbor Township next to Home Depot or online at mattblattnissan.com. Negative equity will be refinanced into new vehicle. Rate qualifications exist. Not all will qualify. 0% APR financing based on 1667 per thousand borrowed. Offers can't be combined. Call 877-289-6670 or go to mattblattnissan.com for complete details. Offer ends 8/6/21. It's on at Matt Blatt Nissan on the Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township.
Why would someone looking for a mortgage at the Jersey Shore take a loan from a company in Detroit or North Carolina or some other far-off place? Online mortgages promise a lot but don't always deliver. First Bank of Sea Isle City knows the Jersey Shore. We are local lenders. We use local appraisers and provide in-house processing. We understand the unique obstacles of financing in Cape May County. Don't take a chance. Local banking is better. Let us guide you. First Bank of Sea Isle City.
Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Always wanted a Jersey Shore mansion? With a $127 million Powerball jackpot win, you could buy the shore home of your dreams, plus one for everyone in your family. It's just that many millions. Anything can happen in Jersey.
This is Sports Bash Saturday with Josh Hennig, live from the Matt Blatt Kia Studios. Here's Josh Hennig.
Josh Hennig back here in the Matt Blatt Kia Studios on 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free thanks to First Bank of Sea Isle City. All your Sixers, Phillies, Eagles, Flyers, high school sports coverage, and more, all on the 97.3 ESPN mobile app and 97.3 ESPN.com. We're also live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, where you can watch the show. Don't forget, coming up, we'll be talking with Marc, Raimondi, ESPN MMA reporter, about UFC 264 coming up at 1:40 tonight. I'll be also getting to my FanDuel Sportsbook picks for the weekend. But first, as promised, we'll get back to the text board. 609-403-0973 is the text board. You also comment on the stream if you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Over on the text board, texture chimes in at 609-403-0973. Text says, totally agree that if you don't have the toughest mental makeup, Philly will kill your game. Wentz and Simmons are just a few on a long list. And listen, it's not because the athlete is horrible, but it's because you can't perform in certain environments. It's not a Philly thing. People want to paint this as, oh, well, Philly will eat you alive. Like nowhere else will eat you alive. People act like this is so exclusive to Philadelphia sports. It's like anything in life. A high-pressure environment, an environment where your job is very demanding of you, is always going to impact you a certain way. All right? If you go from, in let's say, whatever your business is, all right? If you're an accountant, if you work at a law firm, if you work at a convenience store, okay? You work at whatever your profession is, okay? And you go from a job where things are a little laid back, things are not as demanding, they're a little more understanding. You know, maybe if you are running a little late for work, they understand. Or you go to a job where, you know, if you can't get everything done in time, they say, oh, that's okay, we'll just do it tomorrow. Or, you know, maybe they don't put as much on your plate. You go from that environment to an environment that's much more demanding, that's much more stipulative on when you get to work, how you do your work, when you get your work done. Some people can handle the pressure and some people can't. Some people thrive under the pressure. Some people can't. It's the same thing with sports. Ben Simmons and Carson Wentz are two individuals who are not made for the pressure cooker. It's just who they are. It doesn't mean they're horrible players. Doesn't mean that they can't be successful. Listen, Carson Wentz has talent. I was a Carson Wentz guy before he was ever drafted. I was 100% on board with his talent, his football IQ, everything. But over time, Carson Wentz proved that he was fragile in the mind. He just couldn't handle certain things. And if Jalen Hurts being drafted impacts you that much, and if you're so stubborn that after you throw an interception where you obviously stared down the receiver and threw it right to the other team, that you won't admit to you made a mistake, that's a mental makeup problem. If Ben Simmons is able to swish one after another, free throws, three-pointers, fadeaway jumpers in pregame, at practice, but he can't do it in a game, that's a mental makeup problem. That's not a Philly issue. That's a person issue. So this idea that Philly is so tough, no, it's any environment that is tough. It will eat you alive. And certain people just can't handle certain scenarios. 609-403-0973 is the text board. Little news for the Phillies that just came on down the wire here about a minute ago. The Phillies have called J.D. Hammer from AAA to join their bullpen for this weekend. They have placed Odubel Herrera on the 10-day injured list, retroactive to yesterday, July 9th, with a left ankle tendonitis. So that means that Odubel Herrera will be available to return, at least from the 10-day DL, 2 Mondays from now. So basically, they are making him inactive for the rest of this series, and then the first series when they come back from the All Star break, that he could theoretically come back. So they're basically giving him an extended break. Whether there's an injury or not, we don't really know. We have to take their word for it. But Pete Thompson's favorite player, JD Hammer's been called back up to the big leagues. So there you go. All right, I promised you guys I would get to the FanDuel Sportsbook picks of the weekend. Don't forget, FanDuel Fight Night is back tonight, and it's bigger than ever. Saturday night, FanDuel is giving new users 30-1 odds on either Conor McGregor or Dustin Poirier to win at UFC 264. That means you can bet on either McGregor or Poirier with a $5 bet and walk away with $150. If you're already a user of FanDuel Sportsbook and you already have an active account, all customers get a one bet risk-free. So if you're a new user, download the FanDuel Sportsbook app, use my promo code Hennig to get on all the action. Don't miss out on the fight of the summer, McGregor versus Poirier free, and get your risk-free bet Saturday night. If you're a current user of FanDuel Sportsbook, all you got to do is opt in to the risk-free bet on the FanDuel Sportsbook app, and you can pick any bet on the card risk-free and walk away with a win. Again, it's FanDuel Sportsbook. Must be 21 or to play and present in New Jersey. New users only. Must wager in designated offer market. $10 first deposit required. $150 max bonus. See full terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, so before we get to the UFC stuff, couple of, first of all, the same game parlay pick for the weekend for tomorrow night's game 3. So we're going to take Jonathan Van Tobel as part of this same game parlay for FanDuel Sportsbook. So the Mikal Bridges over 1.5 3-pointers made. I'm going to combine that with the minimum DeAndre Ayton 10 rebounds and my other go-to Giannis Antetokounmpo minimum 4 assists or more, and the Milwaukee Bucks money line. So that's a 4-leg same game parlay we're going to throw out here. A $20 wager will gain you back $58. So that's a total of $78. If you bet $20, you'll walk away with $78. It's plus 294. So again, Mikal Bridges over 1.5 3-pointers made. Milwaukee Bucks money line combined with DeAndre Ayton minimum 10 rebounds and Giannis minimum 4 assists plus 292. So that's your first FanDuel Sportsbook pick for the weekend. My second one is we mentioned the risk-free bet. Okay? Well, here's the deal. Gilbert Burns is still an underdog, so I would pick him in this fight tonight. Again, it's an easy risk-free bet. It's a win no matter what. If you want to parlay for tonight, here's my parlay for the UFC 264. If you go to the McGregor-Poirier market, you pick the fight will end by knockout or TKO. Now, you're not picking who will get the knockout or TKO. You're just picking somebody. The fight will end in a knockout or TKO because I think that this fight is not going the distance. I think someone is getting knocked out. Okay? You combine that with your risk-free bet because Gilbert Burns is already plus 128. So that was a risk-free bet I gave you guys yesterday. You can use that if you're already on FanDuel Sportsbook. But you combine that the fight McGregor-Poirier will end in a knockout or TKO. Combine that with Gilbert Burns' money line with Sean O'Malley money. Now, Sean O'Malley is a minus 1,100 favorite. He is the biggest favorite on the card by far. But you take that winner, Gilbert Burns' underdog money line, and combine it with that McGregor-Poirier will end in a knockout TKO. That 3-leg parlay is plus 278. And a $20 wager will run you back $49 for a total of $69 win. Like I said, I really think Burns is going to win this fight. I think people don't realize that Stephen Thompson is past his prime. I really think that people don't understand that Thompson, if he wins this fight, is a huge moment for him because he hasn't been the dominant fighter that he used to be recently. You go through all of his highlights. If you watch, any of the UFC preview shows, UFC Countdown, UFC Live, any of the products on ESPN, ESPN Plus, ESPN YouTube, the majority of those highlights are not recent highlights. They're from before the Tyron Woodley fights. Since Tyron Woodley draw and loss, you can tell he's not 100% the same fighter. Gilbert Burns is a monster right now. He was on a massive winning streak before he lost to Kamaru Usman, and he still rocked Usman for a bit in that fight. So Burns is definitely a guy who can win this fight to me. And then Sean O'Malley, he's just a prohibitive favorite. And like I said, I think that McGregor-Poirier is going to win end in a knockout or TKO tonight. So that's how I'm looking at the UFC 264 picks for tonight. Of course, that's on ESPN+. We'll get more deeper into the card coming up in less than 10 minutes with ESPN MMA reporter Marc Raimondi right here on 97.3 ESPN. Josh Hennig here. Again, I mentioned to you the Phillies news. J.D. Hammer's been called up from Lehigh Valley, and they've placed Odubel Herrera on the 10-day injury list. That means that he will miss the rest of this series, and he will miss the series coming up after that. All right, we're going to head one more time down to North Wildwood. The one, the only Pete Thompson is live down in North Wildwood. It is the New Jersey Barbecue Championships down in North Wildwood. PT has been sampling the food. He's going to tell us about that. Pete, before I get there, your favorite player has been called up to the Phillies, J.D. Hammer.
Oh, do you think that we're not down here listening? The whole Wildwood, New Jersey State Barbecue Festival is listening to the golden tones of Josh Hennig right here on this Saturday, and I heard you say J.D. Hammer, and I was like, woohoo, the Hammer time is back. Yeah, that's right up Billy and my alley. Speaking of Billy Schwein, by the way, we have a very special guest tomorrow. You probably know this, but the listening audience may not. At 10:30 tomorrow, none other than Jimmy Johnson will be joining Billy and I on 97.3 ESPN. So we're really looking forward to having the coach on, former Miami Hurricanes, of course, former Dallas Cowboys. You know, he was on Survivor once of all things too, Josh. I mean, he's
right.
Fox pre and post, Jimmy Johnson. So we're really looking forward to having the coach on. He's got a ginormous fishing tournament that he holds every year, and we're going to talk to him about that and find out more about his association with Atlantic City and why he's got one of the better East Coast fishing tournaments out there, quite frankly. He's at 10:30, and then at 11 o'clock, we're going to catch up with Frank Kopenbarger, and I think you've heard me say Frank's name before. Frank is the former Phillies clubhouse manager. He's good friends with Charlie Manuel and Larry Boa, and when Frank left the Phillies and left the Philadelphia area, he retired to Ocean City. And, in fact, he was at a baseball game with me when they had that last dance tournament. Remember, where everybody was just coming out of the pandemic? And he said, hey, do you know anybody with Ocean City? And I said, yeah, I know the coach, Coach Bristol. And I put those guys together. And, boy, what a hell of a ride Frank Kopenbarger had with Ocean City High School baseball this year. As, you know, the guy's forgotten more about baseball than most people remember. So good on him. And we're going to hear some great stories, I'm sure, about clubhouse stories. He's the traveling secretary. So, you know, if the Phillies were just at Wrigley and then at Fenway, the logistics of, like, what it goes in to move a baseball team and stuff. But I'm getting off task. I should be talking about the New Jersey State Barbecue Championship.
You should.
Which is the 3-day open-air festival championship barbecue competition. What makes this impressive is that it's sanctioned by the Kansas City Barbecue Society. In fact, the judges every year, one of the rituals that they do is they stand up and they all face Kansas City and recite the pledge, like to be honorable judges and to adhere to the standards of the Kansas City Barbecue Society. It cracks me up every year because it's almost like, you know, they stand up and they think, all right, now where's Becca? And Becca is Kansas City. And they stand up and do their pledge and stuff. So we're having a blast down here, Josh. The foot traffic has increased. We're at the corner of First Avenue and Old New Jersey Avenue, and the music has started up again. So please come down and see Leanne and I. We're giving away a lot of 97.3 ESPN prizes. All you got to do is make a putt. You get 3 chances, and it's really a great time. Blues Time is on the stage right now because, remember, it's not just the barbecue festival. It's also the Anglesey Blues Festival as well, because what goes better with barbecue than beer? Than blues. Barbecue and blues. Sorry, that's slipped out.
Well, you're not wrong, so I wasn't gonna correct you.
That's true. I'm not wrong. And you can get that if you want to. There's some stronger beverages down here should you choose. Leanne and I both sampled the product. Thank you again to Butch's Barbecue, Smack Your Lips. She's been smacking her lips ever since. It's People's Choice 700 national awards. I mean, we had a little bit of everything. We had some brisket, we had some pulled pork, we had some mac and cheese. Her barometer was, if the coleslaw doesn't suck, it must be pretty good. And the coleslaw was outstanding. But for me to eat ribs that are just falling off the bone, Josh, oh, it was so good.
All right, well, Pete's going to be down just a little bit longer. And again, go visit him and all the team down there. It's the New Jersey Barbecue Championships in North Wildwood in the Anglesey District, and you're at 1st Street and Old New Jersey Avenue. Correct, Pete?
That is correct. 1st Avenue and Old New Jersey Avenue. Come by and see us.
All right, Pete, have a good time down there, man.
All right, Josh, good stuff. Good working with you today. Take care, bud.
All right, Josh Hennig here, Sports Bash Saturday, 97.3 ESPN. Coming up next, we'll dig deeper into UFC 264. ESPN MMA reporter Marc Raimondi joins the show live from Las Vegas with insight. McGregor, Poirier 3, plus the entire UFC card and more right here on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. We watch the show and join the conversation as well. 609-403-0973 and comment on the web stream right there if you're watching on all the social media platforms. Just follow 97.3 ESPN.
Today on Major League Baseball on ESPN Radio. One of baseball's fiercest rivalries begins another chapter this weekend when the Chicago Cubs welcome the St. Louis Cardinals.
Swing and a miss. He struck him out. Kimbrough closes it out.
The Cubs and Cardinals. Coverage begins today at 6:30 Eastern on ESPN Radio.
Listen to Major League Baseball on 97.3 ESPN, South Jersey's home of the MLB playoffs and the World Series.
Always wanted a Jersey Shore mansion? With a $127 million Powerball jackpot win, you could buy the shore home of your dreams, plus one for everyone in your family. It's just that many millions. Anything can happen in Jersey.
I'm New Jersey Secretary of Agriculture Doug Fisher. Whether you eat cucumbers as a snack, in a salad, or pickle, you'll be happy to know Jersey Fresh cucumbers are now in season. Find Jersey Fresh cukes today at your favorite farm market or supermarket. Stay loyal to local Jersey Fresh.
This is Sports Bash Saturday with Josh Hennig, live from the Matt Blatt Kia Studios. Here's Josh Hennig.
Josh Hennig here, Sports Bash Saturday, 97.3 ESPN. As promised, we're going to jump deeper into UFC 264, McGregor, Poirier, the trilogy. The fight is tonight. Of course, you can only watch on ESPN Plus pay-per-view. And joining us right now, live from Las Vegas, to get more into the fights tonight, he is Marc Raimondi, ESPN MMA reporter, live from Vegas, and he joins us now right here on 97.3 ESPN. Marc, how you doing today?
I'm good, Josh. Good morning. Well, I guess good morning for me. Good afternoon for you.
Yeah, you're the second person I've talked to today out in Vegas, so I know the time difference is definitely an interesting dynamic, but I always do appreciate you jumping on. First of all, before we get any of the details, I feel like there's like 100 storylines when it comes to this card today with McGregor and Poirier, and I feel like everyone is kind of like run down the road with their favorite ism or storyline or aspect of the fight. What is your favorite aspect or storyline of this fight tonight?
Wow, that's actually a question, and to your point, I totally agree. I think this fight kind of checks all the boxes. It has all of the things that, when you think about prize fighting and combat sports and expected those things from, a grudge to storylines you mentioned to just the enormous stakes. And I think the one that stands out to me is really just the stakes of this fight, really for both men. I really feel like it doesn't happen often where one fight could be the biggest fight of the careers of two people. And I really do think this is possible tonight with McGregor and Poirier. I really think it's a pivotal moment in both their careers, and that just doesn't happen every Saturday. So this is a special fight, and the winner, of course, will fight next for the UFC lightweight title, which is huge in and of itself. But it's really more than that. It's more of a career-defining fight. Doesn't Poirier can beat Conor McGregor 2 times in a span of 6 months? What an incredible feather in the cap for Poirier for his career. I would argue that it's almost as big as winning the UFC title, because if we're being honest, there are more eyes on a McGregor fight than there would be a Charles Oliveira fight, for instance. So I think it's just an enormous fight for Poirier. And then it's for McGregor, it's so fascinating. Where does he go next, win or lose? If he wins, of course, he gets a title fight. If he loses, then what happens? He's the biggest star the UFC has ever known, and he's facing possibly 2 losses in a row to the same guy. And what's next for him? He's almost out of the title picture if he loses for the first time, really almost in his entire UFC career. It's just so fascinating. It's so compelling. Talk about big fights, the big fight feel. It is here in Las Vegas tonight.
Just to dig a little deeper on McGregor, I was talking with someone I know. They've covered boxing for a long time. And looking at McGregor, there's a part of me that looks at him and almost feels like there's a little bit of his career that mirrors Mike Tyson, and that, McGregor and Tyson, they burst on the scene. They were knocking out people. They're just these superstars. And then their lives obviously went, in different ways for different reasons. Obviously Tyson went to jail. McGregor didn't go to jail. But the point is that McGregor had things going on in his life. He wanted to go pursue boxing and everything. And he's come back, and he just doesn't seem like he's 100% the same guy, in the same way that Tyson, when he came back, he wasn't the same guy. So do you think that McGregor can do what Tyson was unable to do, which is find that old McGregor again?
And that is one of the biggest questions coming into the fight. And I think the comparison is super interesting. And I think that really is, there are definitely things that ring true about, the McGregor career trajectory, the Mike Tyson career trajectory. And that, when you make it to that level of combat sports and prize fighting, it's just a crazy thing, because it's not like a team sport where you're going to win the NBA Finals or you're going to win, the World Series. It's really just you out there. And what those two guys were able to do early in their careers, the historic rises, the incredible, the incredible attention they were getting. They were both must-watch people. Their fights. Everyone wanted to see Tyson knock somebody out. Everyone wanted to see Conor knock somebody out. And I think it's it can mess with you. It can really mess with you when you get to that level so quickly in your life and in your career. And for Conor, it's you know, at 32 years old now, he's someone who has 3 kids. He's a much different man than he was even in 2015, 2016 when he was at the height of this UFC run. And man, it's what's interesting about this fight too is that Dustin Poirier was one of the first big fights that he had in 2014. He knocked out Dustin Poirier, and now here he is trying to fend off Dustin Poirier in an incredibly pivotal moment in his career. Can he get back that momentum? Can he return to the top? Conor McGregor is the most bankable star in UFC history, the most popular by far. Can he still become one of the greatest fighters of all time? It's still possible. No one has won the lightweight title twice. And if he does that, he'll definitely put himself in the history books once again. But, is he one of the best of all time, or is he just one of the richest of all time? That's one of the questions on the line tonight.
Marc Raimondi joining us here on Sports Bash Saturday, 97.3 ESPN. McGregor Poirier 3 is tonight on ESPN Plus pay-per-view. You can follow Marc for all of your MMA coverage at Marc_Raimondi on Twitter. Marc, let's flip the script over to Dustin. Obviously, biggest moment of Dustin's career was beating Conor McGregor earlier this year. But it seems like that Poirier at this point is kind of like in the peak. He's kind of like in that groove of his prime. And tonight it feels like he's in a position to not just beat McGregor, but he's in a position to almost steal some of McGregor's spotlight in a way that he couldn't even do months ago, because that was in Abu Dhabi. This is in Vegas. This is a sold-out crowd. This is post-pandemic, quote-unquote, environment. So to me, there's something on the line tonight for Poirier. It's more than just beating McGregor. It's doing it on a stage that he wasn't even on before 6 months ago.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt. I really do believe there is a lot of truth to that, and it's a weird dynamic here because Conor McGregor is obviously a fan favorite, of course. I mean, he's again the most popular fighter in the history of the sport, and he's the one getting cheered this weekend, and Dustin Poirier is getting booed, which is such a strange thing because Dustin Poirier is objectively speaking, Josh, one of the nicest and best people in the sport of MMA. And this is a guy that, he's a family man. This is a guy that has, the Good Fight Foundation, which he gives back regularly hundreds of thousands of dollars to the youth in Louisiana communities where he's from. I mean, this is a legitimately good dude, and he's the one getting booed. And to your point, to your question, I think that if he's able to beat McGregor again, especially in spectacular fashion, I do think that he will get a lot more people on board, and he will become a much bigger star in the future. It's again another case of a career-defining moment in this fight. It's really true. Poirier has a really major chance to become a much bigger star tonight.
I want to ask you a couple other things aside from McGregor and Poirier tonight, because UFC 264 is more than that. The co-main event is so huge to me, Marc, because Stephen Thompson, Gilbert Burns, these are two guys who have previously fought for the title. They're both trying to get their way back. And I'm looking at the Vegas lines and the lines across the country. Gilbert Burns is an underdog almost on every sports book. And I don't believe in that. I don't believe Gilbert Burns should be an underdog because I feel like Stephen Thompson is not in his prime. I think Burns is in his prime. And I think this fight tonight is a situation where I think Burns has a chance to really put a staple out there, be like, hey, Usman may have beaten me, but I'm still one of the best in this weight class. And I feel like he can look at Stephen Thompson in a situation where he can say, hey, you may be a favorite, but I'm still the number one contender.
You make a good point. I do think Burns might be getting slept on just a little bit in this fight. And I think really what it is Wonder Boy is such a tough puzzle to crack. He really is his style is unlike anything else, and it's very hard to replicate. And I know Gilbert Burns brought in Raymond Daniels for his training camp, which I think is a brilliant move because, that karate style, you really need to know the kind of attack and the kind of defense that Wonder Boy has. And I think the reason why he's a favorite is because he has that striking style that's very hard to get close to. He really keeps his distance beautifully. And let's not forget, Gilbert Burns was a lightweight. He's a smaller welterweight. He's going to be much shorter, and Wonder Boy is going to have a height and reach advantage, which for someone like Wonder Boy, he uses his distance and his length so well. that is a pretty big advantage. So I do understand why the odds are the way they are. And to your point, I do. Wonder Boy's 38 years old. He's Wonder Man. He's not Wonder Boy anymore. He's 38 years old. But I still think that until we see the crack in the armor as far as that, incredible striking. I mean, this is the guy that pieced up, Jorge Masvidal. He beat Gilbert Burns' best friend, Vicente Luque, with that striking. And Luque is a tremendous striker. He just beat Jeff Neal, who's one of the best up-and-coming guys in the welterweight division. I do think there's more left in the tank for Wonder Boy, and he's just such a tough style matchup for really anybody. And I think he would be for Kamaru Usman, too, if they ever fought.
What is your favorite fight on this card tonight that is not the main or co-main event, and why?
That's usually a hard question because there's always so many interesting fights. But tonight, I really feel like the Michelle Tejeda versus Nico Price fight. I really, I'm a firm believer in that fight because, just simply they're two of the most entertaining men in the UFC right now. Nico Price is one of the most creative finishers in the sport. This is a guy that has knocked people out with hammer fists from the bottom. Hammer fists from bottom position where he used his foot to frame a man's face and then smashed it in with his fist. That no one does that, and Nico Price did that and finished the fight that way. And Michelle Tejeda is must watch. He is he's a supernova of movement in there. This is a guy that he did a flip off the scale at weigh-ins yesterday here in Vegas. This is a guy that you never know what he's going to do. He does flips inside the cage. He does flips off the cage. Just an incredible entertainer, and both of these guys are violent and they knock people out. And I can't imagine any other scenario where this is not an incredible fight. Price versus Tejeda.
And that's technically the co-main event of the prelims, which you can watch tonight.
Correct.
As well on ESPN. Marc, before I let you go, always appreciate the conversation and the insights. I gotta ask your opinion. One of my picks for the fights tonight is I am guaranteeing the audience that McGregor and Poirier will finish by knockout or TKO. What do you think?
It's a pretty good bet. What I've been thinking about a lot this week is, what does the fight look like? I try to envision the fight, before it happens, and I'm having a hard time envisioning the fight going 5 rounds. Really, I really don't. Look at the first 2 fights. If history is any indication, McGregor finished in the first round in 2014. Poirier finished in the second round just a few months ago in January. McGregor has had cardio issues, and Poirier usually gets better as the fight goes on. So if the fight goes deep, you have to like Poirier's chances of finishing. He has several late finishes in his UFC career, including over guys like Justin Gaethje, another tremendous lightweight. Whereas Conor is one of the most dangerous guys in the sport early in the fight, in the first round, in the first half of the second round. He can knock anybody out. So it does stand to reason that it's going to be very hard for this fight to go the whole way, the whole 25 minutes.
He is Marc Raimondi. Follow him on Twitter at Marc_Raimondi, ESPN MMA reporter. Of course, you can check out all of his work over at ESPN.com. And he was gracious enough to join us live from Vegas, where it's still the morning over there, here on 97.3 ESPN. Marc, always great insights. Keep up the great work, my man.
Appreciate it, Josh.
Josh Hennig, Sports Bash Saturday here on 97.3 ESPN. Wrapping up the show as we wind you down to the end here. Don't forget, we have UFC 264 tonight. You can watch it on ESPN Plus pay-per-view. Also, here on 97.3 ESPN later today, we have Cubs versus Cardinals. Coverage begins at 6:30 p.m. here on 97.3 ESPN FM. Tomorrow, NBA Finals Game 3. You can hear that right here starting at 7 p.m. here on 97.3 ESPN FM. Tomorrow, Billy Schweim in the locker room with the one and only Pete Thompson, who's down there at the New Jersey Barbecue Championships down there in North Wildwood. He'll be back in here in studio with Billy Schweim tomorrow. Their special guest, Hall of Fame coach Jimmy Johnson. I was telling Billy Schweim this earlier. People will be like, oh, you mean the Cowboys coach? No. Hall of Fame coach, okay? He is literally the man who made the 90s Cowboys. He literally made a dynasty in the NFL, and he elevated a dynasty in college football. He was the U coach when Howard Schnellenberger left Miami. He came in there and elevated a college football program. He elevated Oklahoma State. This is a great football coach He's a pretty good analyst as well, bringing that fishing tournament. You can check out all the details about the fishing tournament over at 973ESPN.com. So, great guest tomorrow. Billy Schwein in the locker room with Pete Thompson right here on 97.3 ESPN. Mike Gill, the Sports Bash, will be back on Monday, starting at 2 o'clock. I'll be back at 6 o'clock Monday for game night right here on 97.3 ESPN FM. Thanks again to Marc Raimondi for joining us live from Las Vegas. Also, Jonathan Von Tobel, also in Las Vegas, joining us. It's morning time out there, so appreciate those guys jumping on the show despite the time difference. Thanks again to Pete Thompson for checking in as well from the Barbecue Championships down in North Wildwood. I'm Josh Hennig, at Josh Hennig on Twitter. I'll catch you guys later. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you on Monday.
South Jersey's sports station, 97.3 ESPN. Wake up weekday morning 6 to 10 with Keyshawn, Jay, Will, and Zubin. Followed by Greeny with Mike Greenberg from 10 till noon. At noon, it's Bart and Hahn. Then from 2 to 6 p.m., it's South Jersey's #1 rated sports talk show, The Sports Bash with Mike Gill. And from 6 to 7, Josh Hennig hosts Game Night. Plus, 97.3 ESPN is your exclusive play-by-play home for Philadelphia Eagles, Sixers, and Flyers, the NBA playoffs and finals, Major League Baseball, and the World Series, the NFL Draft, Monday, Thursday, and Sunday Night Football, the NFL playoffs, and Super Bowl 56. We are South Jersey's sports leader. 97.3 ESPN. And listen anywhere with the free mobile app.